There's just so much more room for activities now. Hello and welcome to Hockey Talkie. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. As you can see, things are a little bit different around here. I decided to redo my office. I took the desk and moved it from the center of the room to against the wall. So now I've got a lot more space to move around in, but that also means I have a new backdrop. And right now it's a bunch of jerseys. And you're probably wondering, well, where are all the Hawks jerseys? Isn't this a Hawks channel? It is. The problem is I have 3 Hawks jerseys in my possession, and I kind of wear them while I do these videos, and I don't really feel like having to take them down off the wall and put them back up all the time. So I just got jerseys up there that I've played in, that I've gotten in tournaments. They're hideous, but I love them. And I mean, there is a Blackhawks jersey right up there, so it's kind of a Hawks jersey. But as I get more Hawks jerseys, I'll start kind of replacing those. But for now, you just got some hideous jerseys up there. You actually do have a Bulls-inspired jersey right there too. So I mean, it's something, right? Anyhow, tonight the NHL kicks off the regular season. The Hawks play on Friday. So how about a little season preview video? Let's get started. Let's start off by talking about the opening night 23-man roster for the Chicago Blackhawks. And I say 23-man roster, but technically it's 24. But technically 3 of those guys are injured, so technically it's 21. Just bear with me. At forwards, we have Kajula, Carpenter, DeBrincat, Kampf, Kane, Kubalik, Nylander, Perlini, Saad, Shaw, Smith, Strome, and Taze. That is, if you're counting 13 forwards. For defense, we have DeHaan, Gustafsson, Keith, Cuckoo, Mata, and Seabrook. That is 6 defensemen. And then we have 2 goaltenders, Corey Crawford, Robin Lehner. The 3 injured players are John Quenneville, Kirby Dach, and Connor Murphy. And here's the thing. So with those 3 players, it's 24 people on our roster. However, John Quenneville was sent down, but he can't officially be sent down until he's healthy. So he's still technically up, but once he gets healthy, he will be down. And then Kirby Dach and Connor Murphy are the other 2. They would round out the 23-man roster. We'll see how much time Kirby Dach gets with this club. I'm thinking it's going to be depending on how well he does in the regular season games. It's kind of been the benefit of him getting the concussion and not going through training camp and preseason is he kind of just made the regular season roster because, well, the coaches want to see him play before possibly sending him down to the WHL, down to Saskatoon, because he can't go to the AHL. So they're kind of in a little bit of predicament. Whereas, like Adam Boqvist played in the preseason and played in training camp, and we got to actually see him, and we got to see that his defense isn't quite up to NHL standards yet. He needs some AHL work. His offense is there, but as a defenseman, he needs to be competent on defense, so we had to send him down. Kirby Dach, based on his performances in the regular season, we'll see what happens there. Now, what you might be thinking here is we have 13 forwards, so we have 1 extra healthy forward, and then 6 defensemen, so we have 0 healthy extra defensemen. Like, isn't that a bad strategy? Well, the thing is, considering that we're playing our first game over in Prague, over across the pond in Europe, and we have about a week in between our first game of the season and our second game of the season when we come back home, there is plenty of time to adjust the roster and either have people get healthy in that time or call some guys up. The roster can be adjusted. There's plenty of time for that between those 2 games. So this roster that we see right here, this 23 or 24-man roster that we see right now, might not necessarily be the same after our first game and into next week. Speaking of the European trip, we did play a preseason game against a German team, and the Flyers played a game against a Swiss team. We won our game. Flyers did not win their game, and you might want to draw conclusions off of those 2 games, but I'm going to tell you, don't. They're preseason games. Preseason literally doesn't matter. just don't put any stock into those games. And I'll tell you, because there's been multiple times in the past where NHL teams have lost to a European team in preseason. One of them being in 2009 preseason, the Hawks lost to a Swiss team, Zurich, and they ended up winning the Stanley Cup that year. So, just because you don't do well against a European team in preseason doesn't really tell you anything about your team's season coming up after that. And also, it might actually benefit the Flyers that they lost, because they might now have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and be kind of pissed and angry going into the game Friday. So, yeah, not really the best of scenarios for the Hawks, I would say, at least in terms of maybe motivation. Now, there is one thing that does benefit the Hawks in the beginning of the season here, is after our first game over in Europe, we come back home and we essentially have 7 straight games at home to start the season. That is a great opportunity for the Hawks to try and take advantage early in the season, get points in the standings, get yourself a little bit up in the standings in the Central Division, which is going to be a complete Thunderdome once again. But a great opportunity for the Hawks. Hopefully they can take advantage of it. Speaking of divisions and standings, let's just jump right into some predictions now for the season. Let's start off with the Central Division, the best division in hockey, the Thunderdome. 7 teams vying for 5 playoff spots. That's right, 5 spots are going to the Central Division this year, same as last year. This year, I have the Nashville Predators repeating as Central Division champs. Now, they only won by a single point last year, but I say they do it again, whether it be a single point or more points. Doesn't really matter. They're finishing first. I've got the St. Louis Blues finishing second. They're not going to get into an awful start like they did last year. My hope is they get into a good start and then suck it up at the end, opposite to last year. That's my hope, but I think they're going to finish second in the division. I've got the Colorado Avalanche finishing third. I've got the Dallas Stars finishing fourth. And I've got the Chicago Blackhawks back in the playoffs finishing fifth. And if you're counting your cards correctly at home, that means that Winnipeg has dropped out from second place last year in the division all the way out of the playoffs this year. Along with Minnesota, they stay at the bottom. How about that for a prediction? How about that? Winnipeg having a little bit of a troubling offseason. I think it's going to hurt them. I think they're dropping not 1 spot, not 2 spots, not 3 spots, but all the way off. All the way off. Sad. But it allows for the Hawks to get back into the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's the Central Division. It's the Thunderdome. This is going to be a complete just wild ride all the way to the finish, just close races all the way. So it's not like Winnipeg's going to be completely out or the Wild is going to be completely out of the race. Like, all these teams are going to be in the hunt. But, you know, only 5 can make it because the other division has to have 3. And speaking of the other division that has to have 3 spots, technically, the Pacific Division, although they do have 3 legit teams that definitely earn a playoff spot. And I feel like it's going to be the exact same as last year. I mean, Calgary Flames, not getting a whole lot of attention. They won the conference last year. I think they win the Pacific again, although I feel like the Vegas Golden Knights are going to jump into that 2nd spot instead of San Jose. San Jose is going to drop into the 3rd spot. But those 3 teams are going to be your playoff teams. You have the rest of the teams. Arizona, Vancouver, once again, they're close. They're close, but they're not quite there in terms of playoff just yet. So they'll finish shy, and then you have Edmonton and Los Angeles and the Ducks, and, well, they're going to be finishing at the bottom of the Pacific once again. Not a whole lot of change in your Pacific, so a very calm prediction for me here. But, yeah, there's your Western Conference. Predators, Flames, those are your 2 Western Division winners, which, if we go by last year, really don't mean a whole lot. But we'll see. Maybe this is a new year. Heading over to the Eastern Conference, doing it alphabetically, let's do the Atlantic Division. Now, last year they only had 3 teams make the playoffs. I got them having 4 this year. Division winner stays the same. Tampa Bay Lightning, they didn't really get any worse. I don't know how they can do any better, though, but we'll see. I still think they win the division. Then the second and third place teams, well, that's pretty obvious. You got Boston and Toronto. Although I do think Toronto is going to finish second this year rather than Boston. Boston finishing third. And that might be the difference come playoff time. But we'll talk about playoffs later. Fourth team to get into the playoffs from the Atlantic Division. Coach Q's new boys, Florida Panthers, Bobrovsky's new team. Got a bunch of talent down there. I think they're going to sneak into that fourth spot. And then you have a multitude of other teams. You got the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings. I think those three teams, like, they may finish like 1 or 2 points difference between like all three of them. Like, they're going to be snug in the standings together. And then you have the Ottawa Senators finishing last place in the division and might just finish last place overall in the league. Thankfully for them, they do have their lottery pick for this year, so it'll actually benefit them instead of benefiting the Colorado Avalanche, thankfully. But yeah, Ottawa finishing last, Tampa Bay finishing first, Toronto, Boston, and Florida with the other 3 playoff spots. So, Atlantic set, last division, not least, the last division, Metropolitan. Who do we got? Well, first and foremost, I have them having 4 playoff teams instead of 5. So that means one team's going to drop out. Who could that be? Well, let's start off with the top of the standings. I've got the Washington Capitals once again repeating as division champs. Then you have the New York Islanders. I think they're going to drop, so I'm going to have Carolina at second place. Then the Islanders, then Pittsburgh. I think those are your 4 playoff teams from the Metro. And then the final 4, I have Columbus dropping out of the playoffs. They're going to drop down. I have the Rangers and the Devils getting better, so they're going to move up the standings. Not quite playoffs there yet, though, for either of those 2 teams. But they're moving up in the standings. And then the other team that's moving down is the Philadelphia Flyers. But once again, 4 teams, division winner, Washington Capitals, and you got the Carolina Hurricanes, the New York Islanders, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So those are your playoff teams. That is my prediction for all the standings, all the divisions. So let's move on to what this means for the playoffs. Now, first and foremost, divisional winners. It was a bit rough last year in the playoffs. I think this year is going to be complete opposite. I think all 4 divisional winners go through. I know it's kind of boring, but I think that's just, it's just going to work that way. It's my prediction. Deal with it. Anyhow, Predators, Flames, Lightning, Capitals, all 4 of those teams move on. And then the other big story out of the first round is the Maple Leafs finally exercising their demons against the Boston Bruins. And they finally get through 7-game series, obviously, but they find a way to get it done in Game 7 in their own barn because they got second place in their division. They move on, but they'll ultimately fail in the second round. In terms of teams representing the conferences in the Stanley Cup Final, I've got the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know, boring pick, but this might be their year. We've said that for like 7 years now, but this could be it. I'm thinking it's it. Lightning, and then also the Vegas Golden Knights. Those 2 teams are going to meet in the Stanley Cup Final. I got the Lightning winning that one in, I don't know, let's say 6 games. How about that? Lightning, your Stanley Cup champions. Feel free to tell me that I'm wrong down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your predictions as well. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate that as always. I'm so pumped that hockey is back. And also, I'm pumped because the game on Friday, afternoon game, because Blackhawks are over in Prague playing, that means I'm going to be live streaming it. So, well, live stream reaction, like I'm not actually going to have the game on the screen. But if you can't get the game, but you can get on YouTube, on your phone or laptop or whatever, feel free, come hang out with me. I'll be live streaming. We'll have fun. Yeah, pumped for that. I'll also do a normal Hawks recap video after that game. But yeah, super excited for that. Super excited for hockey. Whew. It's good to be back. It's good to have room for all this activity, too. So many ideas, so many things. Anyhow, till then, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you then.